The man peeks out in terror, feeling that some horrible monster is approaching. The obstacles piled at the door cannot stop it at all. A few people have no choice but to hide in the innermost room, but the terrifying presence has not stopped the chase. The man desperately holds the door with his body and stabs a fork into it, but this is just a deathbed struggle. What kind of existence have these people provoked? Welcome to the latest episode of The Terror. The story continues from the end of the last episode. The new patient, Pepper, finally sees the terrifying minotaur in the mental hospital. Under the horrified gaze of Coffee, he was tortured until he was covered in bruises. When he woke up the next day, Pepper was lying on his bed with bandages all over his body and blood on the floor, indicating that what he experienced last night was not a hallucination. He picked up the coin left by Coffee and remembered that he had been forcibly sent behind that iron gate by the head nurse. When Coffee returned to the dormitory again, his eyes were a little more indifferent. He even denied encountering the Minotaur last night. Coffee's statement became consistent with the hospital's. He insisted that Pepper's injuries were caused by his own self-harm. Then he pushed Pepper to the hallway and whispered a warning. The devil is locked behind this iron gate. If you don't obey, you will repeat last night's encounter until you die. Pepper finally understood the reason for Coffee's compromise. Holding Coffee's coin tightly in his hand, he decided to ask his son, Anthony, for help. The call went through, but it was voicemail. Pepper hesitated for a long time and finally gathered the courage to leave a message, hoping that his son could take him home. Unfortunately, the time ran out before he finished speaking. Pepper was full of anger, but for the sake of the hospital's good reviews, he had to patiently participate in the daily book club. The fellow patients didn't seem surprised by Pepper's injuries. Pepper asked the hospital's notable, Dolly, what was locked behind the iron gate? Dolly said mysteriously that the person behind the door used to be very kind, but now he has changed. This ambiguous answer made Pepper unable to hold it back anymore. He directly questioned Dr. Nanda, who was hosting the book club, about what the hospital was hiding. Other patients also joined in the commotion. Wait, before we find out what happens next, if you're enjoying this dark and twisted story as much as I am, do me a huge favor, hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Thriller Recap Hub and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of this mystery. Now back to the story. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, current director suddenly walked in. The powerful aura instantly made the patients quiet down. After dropping a sentence to continue reading, he quickly found the head nurse and stated that the patients were becoming more and more anxious, so he decided to increase their dosage of sedative drugs and organize everyone to go to the pizza shop for dinner. At this time, Pepper had already confirmed that this hospital definitely had big problems. He didn't take the medicine like before, but held the pills in his mouth and spat them out. However, a fellow patient recognized it immediately. This was a drug used to relieve anxiety and fear, and it was clear that he had been used to taking it for a long time. The most exciting thing for them was the upcoming pizza trip, but Pepper really couldn't accept the hospital's sloppy, remedial attitude. Dolly's expression suddenly became serious. He advised Pepper not to show such hostility. After all, the monster was forced, and its actual controller was Dr. Walter behind the iron gate, who was also the founder of the hospital. But these words made Pepper more confused. Isn't that old guy dead long ago? However, Dolly did not answer again. Several drops of blood and tears seeped from his eyes, like a punishment for touching a taboo. At this time, Dr. Nanda was also full of confusion. Previous experience told him that Pepper's injuries could not have been caused by self-harm. It's a pity that this nurse is also new and cannot provide any advice. Dr. Nanda decided to report the situation here to his police friend, but before the text message was sent, he vaguely heard a woman's cry. Curious to look around, Nanda concluded that the sound came from behind the door. Unfortunately, the door lock was broken, and only the partition window in the middle could be opened. The man found a stool and put it under his feet, trying hard to put his head into the doorway. The next moment, an accident happened. At this time, the more Pepper thought about it, the more wrong it felt. He decided to find a few helpers to escape from here together. The short-haired girl, Lucy, in front of him was the best candidate because she had been secretly stopping her medication for a long time, so her emotions appeared unusually stable. However, Lucy did not intend to escape because she no longer had a home outside. Staying here was actually more comfortable. Pepper was speechless at this attitude, and finally could only seek cooperation from his roommate, Coffee. However, Coffee had been taking medicine for a long time, and his mind had long been chaotic. He could only patiently start from the profession Coffee liked, awaken the hidden memories, and finally, Coffee regained his yearning for freedom. He decided to stop taking medicine secretly from today and find a chance to escape later. At this time, Dolly suddenly walked into the room to remind Pepper that someone was asking for him. Pepper's heart moved. Could it be his son coming to save him? But after arriving at the hall, he found that the person visiting was actually the police officer who sent him to the mental hospital, Curly. At this time, Pepper did not know that the other party had committed suicide by shooting himself a few days ago. The person appearing now should not be a good person, but he did not want to show that Curly was surprisingly kind. He understood the injustice Pepper suffered here and even promised to find a way to take him away. Pepper was full of doubts, but he didn't put his hope on the other party. Coffee had been off medication for 2 days, and his mental state was obviously much better. The two had already discussed the escape plan, intending to slip away during the pizza dinner. What surprised Pepper was that Dolly actually wanted to participate in the escape plan and had stopped taking medication for 2 days. Coffee awkwardly explained that his relationship with Dolly had always been good, and there were no secrets between them. In a blink of an eye, the day of the pizza dinner arrived, but Pepper didn't expect his son, Anthony, to come to visit at this time. This meeting was destined to be full of awkwardness and alienation because Anthony didn't even know his father's surname. These years, he had been living with his mother until she died accidentally in a fall not long ago. This visit was mainly to ask Pepper for the funeral expense. Pepper didn't expect that the reunion of father and son after 20 years would be in such a way, and it happened to catch up with his prison break day. He brushed him off by saying now was not the time to talk. This made Anthony completely lose hope. Watching Pepper being urged by the nurse to go to the pizza shop, he felt that his father's life here was quite good. Watching his son's receding back, Pepper also had unspeakable pain. It seems he can only pin his hopes on tonight's pizza escape plan. What made Pepper speechless was that under the propaganda of Dolly, the big mouth, all patients knew about tonight's action, and many people participated in the drug-stopping action. The patients shouted slogans of unity and marched to the pizza shop. Pepper had been secretly looking around, thinking that there was no difficulty in escaping. But just as he reminded Coffee to prepare for action, unexpected situations suddenly occurred. These patients had been taking medicine for a long time, and now they all had withdrawal reactions to varying degrees. Even Coffee was worried about what to do if he couldn't catch the bus after escaping. Pepper was anxious and angry, so he had to leave the store alone during the chaos. The administrator and head nurse in charge of nursing were too busy to take care of him, so he walked to the bus station in a grand manner. Just as he was about to slip into the car from the back door, Pepper saw his good friend having a conflict with the guests in the shop from a distance. He really couldn't bear the other party being bullied, so he gave up the idea of escaping and rushed into the shop to join the fight. A dinner event turned into a farce. The director who received the news was furious, saying that this group of patients was simply lawless. What was even more infuriating was that he found a large amount of abandoned medicine in the flower pots in the yard. The director announced at the top of his lungs that the ward would enter 24-hour full monitoring. The medical staff would stare at everyone eating and sleeping until they fully obeyed. This decision made Pepper almost collapse on the spot. He desperately wanted to know the secret of this hospital. Just when Pepper intended to break open the iron gate, the figure of the police officer Curly appeared again. This time he changed his previous kind appearance and warned Pepper that if he acted impulsively, his friends would pay the price. In a trance, Pepper saw the tragic corpses of Coffee and others. The next moment, he gave up the idea of forcing the door open. But this was only Pepper's expedient measure. He secretly found Dolly and several good friends and expressed his firm attitude. But what Pepper didn't expect was that Dolly secretly opened the secret passage behind the bedroom cabinet in the dead of night. In the office, at the end of the corridor, sat the long-dead hospital founder Walter. Looking at Dolly's performance, this was not their first meeting. Walter was like a god in control of everything. He asked Dolly what gave him the courage to resist. Seeing Dolly keep silent, he said to himself that he was very interested in the new Pepper and ordered Dolly to bring him over to see him. Dolly's tone was weak but very firm, saying that Pepper would not give up. This sentence instantly ignited Walter's anger. He felt that Dolly had regressed a lot recently. It seemed necessary to use some means. In the desperate midnight voice of Dolly, a punishment in the name of treatment quietly descended. When Dolly returned to the public eye the next day, he had completely changed into a different person, sitting in the corner like a statue with empty eyes. Coffee told Pepper with a worried face that every once in a while, Dolly would become like this. It seemed that he could not participate in the plan for the time being. In a blink of an eye, it was lunchtime. The head nurse unexpectedly brought everyone a takeaway, which was a small compensation for yesterday's pizza dinner. However, the director was furious when he saw it because the takeaway also came with a metal fork. This kind of sharp weapon is strictly prohibited in mental hospital. Pepper, on the side, kept an eye out and secretly hid his steel fork before the head nurse arrived. After cleaning up the mess, the director brought even worse news. Because of the complaint from the pizza shop owner, the hospital review committee would come to the mental hospital. Since Dr. Nanda hadn't been seen for a long time, the the director guessed that he might have run away. He called on employees to deal with this review well, otherwise everyone would face the crisis of unemployment in middle age. But the director had not realized that the biggest threat to the mental hospital actually came from within. Pepper was perfecting the plan with everyone. He planned to take advantage of the cover of night to force open the iron gate and then stab the things inside to death. Several good friends were actively making additions. Some said to use shadows to sneak in, and others said to use strong anesthetics. Dolly, who had been silent, suddenly spoke, saying that this would only make everyone die in vain. He suggested that Pepper go to see that person alone. Maybe both sides could become friends. After Coffee finished listening, his face turned pale. He asked Dolly why he wanted to be with the devil. Dolly hurriedly explained that this was also for everyone's safety. He didn't want anyone present to be harmed. However, everyone only felt that Dolly had surrendered to the devil. Seeing that the two sides were about to fight, the dormitory manager, Old Black, forcibly took away the excited Pepper. However, the most sad one was Coffee, who only had Dolly. He guessed that Dolly must have been seduced or forced by the devil. The desperate scream alarmed the head nurse, who hurriedly helped the person into the office. Coffee's eyes regained some vitality. He asked the head nurse why he turned a blind eye to the evil in the hospital. The monster behind the silver iron gate feeds specifically on the pain of patients, and the medical staff are using lies to cover up everything. The head nurse's psychological defense was finally broken. He decided to open the iron gate and let everyone see the truth behind the door. But just as the head nurse took out the key, the director suddenly appeared and severely scolded his stupid behavior. At this time, Dolly found Pepper alone to explain the words and deeds of the day. The reason why he chose to be with the devil was because everyone didn't know how powerful the other party was. Dolly began to recall the heyday of this hospital. Patients came in an endless stream, but the founder, Walter, used awkward surgery to kill many people. This irresponsible behavior attracted the covetousness of the devil. He fed on the pain of patients and gradually strengthened his own power until finally he could transform into any appearance of doctors or police he wanted. But Pepper still hadn't forgotten his goal. So, will he be killed? Dolly didn't answer but asked Pepper, "Do you want to see him with your own eyes? Maybe there is a chance to verify." Pepper nodded firmly and then followed Dolly into the secret passage behind a cabinet. The room in front was Walter's office. Pepper couldn't help but hold the steel fork in his hand. He felt that this was the perfect opportunity to kill the other party. When he pushed the door and walked in, what he saw was not Walter, but the son he had abandoned since childhood. On the other side, Coffee and Lucy suddenly found that Pepper was missing. The two instinctively rushed into Dolly's bedroom and saw the secret passage behind the cabinet at a glance. Coffee's face changed drastically, concluding that Pepper had been taken to the devil by Dolly. He couldn't watch his best friend go to his death, so he resolutely drilled into the secret passage. Lucy followed. Strangely, when the staff rushed into the room to find people, there were clear traces of the cabinet being moved on the ground, but the secret passage had disappeared. At this time, Pepper had fallen into an illusion and could not extricate himself. The act of abandoning his son 20 years ago was the eternal pain in his heart. Walter's figure appeared silently. He threw a fatal temptation to Pepper. As long as Pepper agrees, he can use surgery to forever erase the painful memory of the child. In exchange, he demanded that Pepper take him away from the hospital. If Pepper refuses, he will kill everyone in the hospital. In fact, for Pepper, who also wants to leave, this is simply a giveaway question. Just as the man was about to nod and agree, Coffee and others outside the corridor finally found Dolly. They wanted to save Pepper, but the office door couldn't be opened no matter what. Just as they were smashing the door, a low roar suddenly came from behind them. They realized that the Minotaur had come to kill. Fortunately, Dolly regained consciousness at the critical moment. He knew how to open the door. Several people rushed into the office impatiently, but saw Pepper sitting in his seat with a dull look. Coffee pinched his finger hard and finally woke him up before he gave the answer. Dolly on the side was shaking all over. Fortunately, Pepper did not agree to Walter. If this devil was allowed to leave the hospital, no one knows how many people would die in vain in the outside world. At this time, the Minotaur had already arrived at the door, and everyone realized that they must withdraw as soon as possible. Coffee was in a hurry to lead the way in front, but stepped into a darkness. He felt that there was sticky liquid all around. Through the only light, Coffee saw the director dealing with a review of the health committee. The next moment, he accidentally touched a hard object. Looking down, it was the severed body of Dr. Nanda. Coffee couldn't hold it anymore. He used all his strength to open the iron gate, shouting loudly, "The devil is here." Two investigators cautiously took out their pistols. The above is the content of episodes 3 and 4 of The Terror Season 3. If you want to see how this nightmare ends, make sure you're subscribed to Thriller Recap Hub. Don't forget to like and leave a comment. I read all of them. Let me know if you want me to cover the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.